After allegedly assaulting a teacher in Killeen, Texas, a 17-year-old was held in the Bell County Jail in December of 2019. The incident, which unfolded on December the 2nd, happened while Tyler Cravens was under an in-school suspension due to a prior offense. As cell phone use wasn't permitted for suspended students, teacher Sam Jones reportedly collected the student's devices. Cravens subsequently rushed Jones and pushed him over a desk. According to law enforcement records, a portion of the attack was caught on video, which appeared to show Jones on the floor as he was being punched by the student, suffering knee and shoulder injuries in the process. Eventually, Cravens was escorted out of the classroom, but he continued to be aggressive, according to the arrest affidavit. On December the 10th, the teen was charged as an adult with third-degree felony assault on a public servant and held on a $35,000 bond. Number 11. Texas freshman. An investigation was launched in Fort Worth, Texas, after a video of a high schooler being aggressive toward her teacher was posted online in November of 2021. The footage showed a Castleberry High School freshman approach a substitute teacher who was on the phone and pressed the receiver to end the call. When the woman tried to move the student's hand away, the teen slapped her arm. The girl then proceeded to use the phone, saying she'd call her mother as she shouted profanities at the substitute. She subsequently commented on the teacher's race while talking on the phone. In the aftermath, the mother of the girl, Brittany Evans, told WFAA she was sorry for her daughter's behavior and didn't know where she learned the racially offensive language she was using. Evans added that her daughter, who was autistic and bipolar, was facing a 3-day suspension as a consequence. Number 10. Special education student in Dallas. In January of 2021, an attack carried out by a 17-year-old special needs student during class eventually gave way to a lawsuit against the Independent School District of Dallas, Texas. On January the 8th, Charla Sims, a special education teaching assistant at Spruce High School, allegedly suffered physical violence at the hands of one of her male students. Following the attack, the 56-year-old suffered from intense pain in her abdomen. Doctors reportedly discovered a tear in her aorta, which eventually caused her to become paralyzed. She succumbed to her injuries on January the 11th. The victim's family claimed that they'd only found out about the incident when a former district employee made a disclosure in September of 2022 about the administration's alleged failure to take action in response to the attack. The family's attorneys claimed there were at least 3 other documented assaults involving the same student. On January the 4th of 2023, Sims's family filed a federal lawsuit accusing the Dallas Independent School District of negligence. They demanded reform in the district's classrooms and sought $20 million in damages. Number 9. Russian student. A staggering moment in which a Russian teen in the town of Neryongry was stopped by his classmates from hitting their teacher was caught on camera and subsequently went viral. The video, which was posted in October of 2016, showed the male teacher reportedly struggling to gain the attention of the student in question, who had his headphones on in the middle of a class. After the boy ignored him, the teacher took his device away. The boy then stood up and shouted at the teacher before charging him and throwing a punch. The rest of the class subsequently intervened, pulling the incensed student away. The group managed to take the boy out of the classroom to defuse the situation. The Daily Mail reported that the teacher refused to press charges, although law enforcement did conduct an investigation after the video gained traction online. This picture was also taken at a Russian school, so it looks like teachers don't have it very easy over there. Number 8. North Carolina middle school student. An 8th grade teacher at Topsail Middle School in Hampstead, North Carolina, sued the school board and district leaders after being attacked by a special needs student on April the 19th of 2018. The incident occurred toward the end of Kimberly Burns Fisher's inclusion class, in which the student was called out for saying the word moron. Burns Fisher told the teenage boy to bring over his communication log. Upon approaching the teacher, the boy threw his book back at her, hitting her head. He then lunged at her, knocking her into a chair. When Burns Fisher fell, the student began kicking her in the head and back, leaving her with a concussion, a cut on the face, and a black eye. According to the Pender County Sheriff's Office, a secure order was issued against the student on April the 24th after the findings of an investigation into the assault were submitted to the state's Department of Juvenile Justice Following the ordeal, Burns-Fisher's injuries made it impossible for her to work. 3 years later, she accused the school's principal at the time of the incident, the Pender County Board of Education, and the superintendent of ignoring warning signs and failing to act prior to the attack. The lawsuit claimed that the student who attacked Burns-Fisher had 14 prior incidents of violence and that the defendants had knowledge of his behavioral troubles since 2011. As of the latest updates made in January of 2023, the federal courts were upholding a qualified immunity defense and would clear the former principal of responsibility for damages. The legal claims against the school board and the superintendent were still pending. Number 7. Jordan Lee. In April of 2023, a Texas student was held in custody on a $40,000 bond after assaulting a teacher at Jasper High School. Following the attack, which occurred on April the 6th, an arrest warrant was issued for 18-year-old Jordan Lee. She immediately turned herself in at the Jasper County Jail. The following week, she was charged with 1 count of injury to an elderly person with intent to cause bodily injury and 1 count of assaulting a public servant. She was facing the possibility of spending between 2 and 10 years behind bars as a result. It's unclear if the motive for the assault had yet been determined, but detectives were working with the school's resource officer to further investigate. Number 6. Lariana Jackson. A Louisiana teen relentlessly pummeled her 64-year-old wheelchair-bound teacher on October the 6th of 2021. Gruesome footage of the attack showed 18-year-old Covington High School student Lariana Jackson talking to the elderly woman before unleashing her vicious assault. As the educator fell to the floor, Jackson continued throwing closed-fist punches. Injuries sustained in the attack caused the victim to seek medical attention. Subsequently, Jackson was arrested and held in the St. Tammany Parish Jail on a felony battery charge. According to local police, the attack was motivated by a TikTok challenge. The next day, 2 additional suspects were charged with unlawful posting of criminal activity. 18-year-old Trinity Gervais and an unnamed juvenile turned themselves into law enforcement after they'd been identified by detectives. The latter was released on a custodial agreement. In March of 2022, Gervais pleaded guilty to recording and posting the incident online. On September the 21st, Jackson pleaded guilty to second-degree battery and cruelty to the infirmed. She was sentenced to 5 years of incarceration, with 4 years suspended, to be followed by 3 years of probation with mental health counseling and anger management classes. Number 5. DeJour Russell and Christopher Taylor. In southern Nigeria, an assault occurred at Calabar High School after 33-year-old teacher Sanjay Shaw tried to borrow beds for students joining a physics camp on December the 15th of 2018. The track team on campus attempted to steal the beds from the physics lab. They were reportedly aggressive, kicking the door open as they entered the lab. Camera footage revealed that 18-year-old DeJour Russell and Christopher Taylor, aged 19, together with other student athletes, got into a heated verbal exchange with Shaw. One of the athletes reportedly slapped Shaw's phone, which he was using to record the incident. A track team member then stepped on the device to keep Shaw from retrieving, causing a piece of glass from the phone to pierce Shaw's palm. The incident was reported to school officials, but no disciplinary actions were taken until March the 12th of the following year, when Russell and Taylor were suspended for a week. The latter was still allowed to compete during the duration of his suspension. Number 4. Florida preschooler. A teacher was beaten on the morning of March the 2nd of 2022, but charges weren't filed due to the age of the student responsible. The incident, which took place at Pines Lakes Elementary School in Pembroke Pines, Florida, started after Trisha Meadows' preschool class became unruly. The special needs teacher had to take one of them to another room. Meadows subsequently requested support on the school radio after the boy attacked and jumped on her with his full body weight. When responders arrived, they found the teacher weak and dazed, coughing and dry heaving. She was rushed to Memorial Regional Hospital, where she was intubated due to her severe injuries. In the aftermath, Meadows didn't want to prosecute the student. Legal experts told NBC News that the boy lacked the criminal intent needed for prosecution. Number 3. Odessa 8th grader. After having his phone confiscated, an 8th grader at Bowie Middle School in Odessa, Texas, violently attacked his teacher. Footage of the incident, which was posted in September of 2022, showed the teen talking to the teacher before trying to get the confiscated device back. A struggle ensued, which quickly escalated to violence as the boy threw punches and grabbed the teacher's hair. At one point, the woman fell to the ground as the student kept pummeling her. In the aftermath, the boy was charged with aggravated assault on a public servant, a first-degree felony. According to CBS, he was sentenced to 4 years of probation in order to perform 56 hours of community service. Additionally, the judge ordered his parents to attend a parenting class. Today's topic was inspired by Pema. If you have any other topics you'd like to learn about, subscribe and let us know in the comments section below. Number 2. Brendan Deeper. On February the 21st of 2023, Brendan Deeper from Palm Coast, Florida was accused of assaulting a teacher's aide who reportedly took his Nintendo Switch. Gruesome CCTV footage taken at Martinez High School showed the 17-year-old rushing up to the woman and pushing her to the ground before punching and kicking her. The violent attack was stopped after a group of people restrained the teen. Deeper was arrested, then released from the Juvenile Justice Department's custody the next day. When his case was transferred to adult court, he was rearrested on February the 24th on a felony count of aggravated battery. He was jailed on a $1 million bond and was facing the possibility of spending up to 30 years behind bars. After number 1, you can stay tuned and watch our earlier release on When High School Goes Wrong if you'd like. Number 1. Georgia 9th grader. A 9th grader at Heritage High School in Conyers, Georgia, was jailed for attacking a longtime teacher, Tijuana Turner, on January the 26th of 2023. Turner later said that she was trying to correct the female student's distracted behavior by taking her phone. The girl subsequently went off, attacking the teacher and throwing her to the ground, at which point she rained down a flurry of strikes. Turner was hospitalized for knee injuries and a broken leg. The student was charged with aggravated battery, to which she pleaded guilty. As Fox 5 Atlanta reported in April of 2023, she was sentenced to a year at a youth detention center, followed by a 5-year term of supervised release. Number 7. Shannon Farrell and Lakia Hill. 18-year-olds Shannon Farrell and Lakia Hill faced felony charges in May of 2015 following a prank at the South Iredell High School in North Carolina. The teens cut off zip ties from an unused locker and placed clocks inside, which they'd programmed to go off at varying intervals before putting a personal lock on the storage compartment. Panic gripped the school as the prank unfolded, with fears over a bomb attack mounting. Roughly 1,500 students and 200 faculty members were evacuated. The incident resulted in firefighters, EMS workers, and members of the Highway Patrol being dispatched to the school. Once the fact that it had been a prank emerged, seniors Hill and Farrell were arrested and faced a felony hoax charge for putting a false bomb in a public building. They subsequently appeared before a judge and were released to their parents on $10,000 bonds. Number 6. Mike Kosinski. Surveillance footage from the halls of Jimtown High School in Indiana went viral in February of 2022 after a teacher was captured striking a teenage student across the face. On the 25th of the month, civics teacher Mike Kosinski had asked the student to leave his class following an argument about him wearing a hoodie to school. Kosinski then followed him down the hall, caught up with him and pinned him against the wall. The teacher then slapped the student across the face with enough force that his head bounced off the wall behind him. Kosinski, who'd taught for 40 years and had been named Teacher of the Year in 2020, then grabbed the teen by the shoulders and tried to drag him further down the hall. The student, however, grabbed his own head and collapsed to the floor. As law enforcement investigated the matter, they found that the strike had left him with throbbing pain, a bloody nose, and a bloody lip. In lieu of terminating his employment, the school allowed Kosinski to retire early, which meant that he retained his pension. A judge found probable cause, and in March, Kosinski was arrested on a felony battery charge. In June, he pleaded guilty to one misdemeanor charge of battery causing moderate injury as part of a plea deal. The teacher's actions had reportedly been extremely out of character, as he was generally loved at the school. He was sentenced to 1 year of probation and ordered to pay a $100 fine. Number 5. Incident at Discovery High School. On November the 29th of 2022, a student rained down punches on his teacher at Discovery High School in Lawrenceville, Georgia. Neither the student nor the teacher was named, but it was revealed that the attack had occurred after a parent-teacher conference held the previous night. During the meeting, the educator had reportedly told the teen's parents that he was underperforming. The classroom incident was captured on cell phone video by other students, and it showed the teen in question pummeling his teacher as he cowered on the floor. Others in the classroom intervened and pulled the teen off him, with subsequent reports indicating he'd faced criminal charges as well as disciplinary actions from the school. The teacher was left with head injuries, dizzy spells, and a bloody mouth. The attack came amidst criticism from parents over changes in the school district's policies that made it harder to discipline students. As reported by WXIA-TV, fights across Gwinnett County schools had increased by 35% from the previous year, as did the prevalence of weapons in schools. Number 4. Maxim Canule. On December the 9th of 2021, during a short break between recess and his next class, Canadian visual arts teacher Maxim Canule was greeting students outside a classroom at the John F. Kennedy High School in Montreal. Suddenly, he felt a powerful blow in his shoulder, then turned around and saw a student with a knife in his hand. The attack had been unprovoked and so abrupt that only after paramedics had arrived and cut his shirt open that Canule realized he'd been knifed in the chest as well. He would recall seeing blood bubble and pour out after the blade had pierced his heart, and remembered accepting that he was going to die. Canule required life-saving surgery that involved cutting his sternum open and then closing the wound with permanent metal wiring. He didn't return to the high school where he'd taught for 15 years, and for the first month of his recovery, felt like he was being struck whenever he tried to breathe in. Canule, who subsequently got the words "double stabbed" tattooed on his forearm, talked about his painful recovery during a hearing at the youth courthouse, where his attacker was trialed. The prosecution dropped a request for the teen to be sentenced as an adult. He pleaded guilty to attempted murder and was sentenced to 2 years in custody at a youth institution. His lawyer claimed that his autism had been a factor in the attack, but Canule expressed his doubts regarding that statement after having worked with autistic children throughout his career. He later told the media, "I've never heard of another situation where an autistic student tried to murder someone." The student also had disciplinary issues, and Canule found out in court that he was possibly the only teacher not to have filled out an incident report on him or sent him to the principal's office. Number 3. Marston Riley. In a video from November of 2018, a music teacher from the Maywood Academy High School in California was seen relentlessly pummeling a male teenage student. The altercation had reportedly begun with 64-year-old Marston Riley reprimanding the student for not wearing his required school uniform. The latter cursed the teacher out and threw a basketball at him. Riley was reported to have repeatedly called for security as the confrontation unfolded. The video, which went viral in the aftermath, commenced with the teen calling Riley, a black man, a racial slur as he got in his face. The teacher then started swinging wildly at the student, who hit him back and connected with a few punches. Before the fight was broken up, the student had grabbed onto one of Riley's legs as the teacher repeatedly struck him in the head with his cell phone. The unnamed teen was subsequently hospitalized with moderate injuries, while Riley was escorted off school property in handcuffs and charged with corporal injury to a child. Riley retired before the school district could decide on a punishment for him. As for his legal case, he pleaded not guilty in January of the following year, claiming that he'd tried to avoid the altercation. Parents and former students rallied in Riley's support and raised nearly $200,000 through a GoFundMe page in order to help cover his legal bills. The case against him was ultimately dismissed, with the cited factors being his age, lack of criminal record, the circumstances surrounding the incident, and his completion of a 10-week anger management course. Number 2. Brienne Altis. A Utah English teacher was charged with over a dozen felonies after it emerged that she'd been intimate with 3 male students of the Davis High School in Salt Lake City, started in 2013. The woman, then in her mid-30s, wasn't their teacher at the time, but it was argued that she'd used her influence and authoritative status to engage in relations with them. The trysts had occurred in parks, cars, and her home when her husband was away. Altis was first arrested on suspicion of having been intimate with her students in October of 2013. By that point, her escapades were so ubiquitous that the question, "Who is Miss Altis sleeping with now?" had reportedly become a running joke in the school. Following her initial arrest, she met another student for intercourse at least 3 more times while she was out on bail. That victim, who described her as his teacher with benefits, reluctantly testified against her but called the charges ridiculous and insisted she didn't deserve to be jailed. He'd regarded Altis as his girlfriend, despite reportedly knowing that other students were involved with her. The judge found Altis' behavior while out on conditional release of great concern and subsequently ordered her to remain jailed. A whirlwind trial followed that made national headlines and led to the breakdown of the former teacher's marriage. Altis initially tried to deny the charges but was confronted with damning evidence, including the victim's knowledge of the layout of her home and the placement of tattoos on her body. She eventually pleaded guilty to 3 counts of forcible abuse and received a sentence of 2 to 30 years in prison for her crimes, but maintained that she'd never had malicious intent towards her victims. She'd at one point even argued that one of the students' grades had improved after he'd become involved with her. While incarcerated, Altis completed the offender program and the tech business program, among others, which weighed heavily in her eventually being granted parole in 2019. Number 1. Jonathan Eliterio Martinez Garcia. Teenager Jonathan Eliterio Martinez Garcia faced multiple felony charges following a prolonged and brutal attack against his female teacher at the El Dorado High School in Las Vegas on April the 7th of 2022. Garcia went to the classroom during after-school hours for a discussion about his grades. The teacher, whose identity wasn't disclosed, later revealed to the police the torment to which he'd subjected her. Garcia punched the woman, choked her with a charging cable, and slammed her head against a desk until she lost consciousness. When asked why he was assaulting her, Garcia reportedly responded that he didn't like teachers and was getting revenge. He then choked the woman, again rendering her unconscious, and she awoke with her pants and underwear pulled down. The teen poured an unspecified substance on her and talked about setting something on fire. Garcia moved a shelf on top of the teacher and then sat on top of it. In the midst of the attack, the teen reportedly took a call from his mother. He then cut the teacher's wrists open with a pair of scissors, telling her, "Can't you just die already? Hurry up!" Garcia took her keys and fled the school but was arrested later in the day. The victim was hospitalized with severe injuries but reported as being in stable condition. Garcia initially told officers that he'd blacked out during the attack but eventually admitted that he'd strangled his teacher and forced himself on her. Garcia's identity wasn't revealed at first, but the severity of the charges against him automatically meant that he'd be trialed as an adult. He faced, among others, multiple counts of attempted murder and multiple counts of battery, stemming from the abuse to which he'd subjected his teacher. A mental health evaluation found him competent to stand trial, and in August, he pleaded not guilty. Thanks for watching. Would you rather teach at a school that's notorious for its violent students or at a school located in a war-prone area? Let us know in the comments section below.